Before we begin, two messages. What mobile platform do companies like eBay, NBC Universal, the Los Angeles Times, Razorfish, and PayPal use to build their cross-platform native applications? Titanium by Appcelerator. They aren't alone. There are now over 25,000 apps deployed by Appcelerator, which has been called the Rosetta Stone of app development. And you can start now for free. Just go to www.appcelerator.com for more information. When my company needed to develop a key mobile product, one that I was counting on as a new source of revenue, I knew exactly who to turn to. Macadamian. They delivered on time with incredible attention to detail, and I was able to get product into customers' hands faster than I ever thought possible. I've personally known them for 10 years, and they do make great products even better. Check them out at www.macadamian.com. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Untether.tv. I'm your host. I'm also the founder of Untether.tv. This is where we have these, I can't even describe it, amazing conversations with mobile rock stars. The people who aren't just talking about mobile, they're doing things in mobile. They understand what mobile means to us as consumers, to you as businesses. And this is where we try to extract a little bit of that knowledge, share it for everybody's, for everybody to use in their businesses, and get a little bit of insight into how they run their businesses. And today is a unique one. I'm like every other consumer. I'm out there trying to get the best price I can. I want to be serviced. I want to get a low price. I want to find the right product. I want it all. And mobile, I believe, is the enabler to all of this. It can help you as a consumer find the best price and the product you're looking for. It can help the retailer service you better and make sure you don't walk out and go and buy the product from some other store. And there's so much more in between. Doug Stevens, welcome, Doug, is a retail industry futurist, and he's also the purveyor of Retail Profit. It's a consultancy that this is what they do. They understand the retail business, and we are here to talk to Doug about his perception of what is going on when you take retail, big business, and mobile, which is our love, and combine the two, and what that means for this industry, what that means for retail, what that means for mobile, what that means for you as a consumer, and you as a business that's selling to me as the consumer. So, how is that, Doug? And we're going to do this in 30 minutes.
It sounds perfect. And if we get through it in 30 minutes, it'll be a miracle. So, cool to be. But thanks so much. It's an honor to be finally invited onto Untether. I've been waiting for my invitation. And now here I am. So
I just woke up one day and said, you know what? I gotta talk to Doug. We talk enough in real life that it's time to do this. Not in person, just over Skype.
That's it. Not in person. That's right.
Well, I was showing you. I got an agenda that's about 90 minutes worth of content here. So that's fine. We got the day. We got the afternoon. It's a long weekend. We'll cruise through this.
Sure.
I'd be loath to not give you a moment here to talk about Retail Profit, because you've been doing this and you've been in the retail business, both inside and consulting and working with some of the biggest brands on the planet in retail and the transition that retail is going through. Let's talk about Retail Profit first, and what do you do, and who have you helped, and then we'll get into the brunt of this.
Yeah, so Retail Profit essentially is a business that tracks trends. And we track trends across a number of different verticals, across economics, demographics, technology, and media, really are the four principal channels that we're looking at. And we're looking for things, it's not so much a matter of just sort of collecting newspaper articles and reporting, because there's enough people doing that. But what we're really trying to do is put all those pieces together into some sort of picture of what the world is going to look like, and how really it's changing the dynamics between retailers and consumers. That's really the focus, is where are the shifts taking place. So with that information, most of what I do is do a lot of speaking, a tremendous amount of writing, and I do advise for corporations, government, and trade associations principally.
And it sounds. Retail is retail. In its simplest form, somebody opens up a store or a kiosk or a website, and you walk in. But behind the scenes, what we're seeing is a massive shift. I mean, it's a colossal shift going on in retail, and the balance of power kind of sways one way to the consumer, and then sways one way to the retailer, and now it's squarely way back over here in the consumer's hands again.
That's right.
But to even an untrained eye, people are feeling this, or do you think that people are feeling this, that retail is going through an upheaval right now?
I think retailers are feeling it. I think retailers are cognizant that something is different, and it is. You're not exaggerating when you say that this really is a big deal, because even if you go back as far as go back 2,000 years, right? And look at the way retail and trade and commerce unfolded over 2,000 years. Not much really changed. Yeah, so the format changed. We went from the market bazaar and traveling retail and through the whole merchant period and the guild period and all that, all the way up to the big box, right, 2,000 years later. But fundamentally, it was always brands and retailers that had all the information on their side.
Yep.
They knew how the product was made, they knew where it was made, they knew all the ingredients, all of the kind of intel inside stuff, and the consumer was left to have to trust it.
Yep.
We had no choice. And so that has fundamentally changed. Now, you could argue that, well, that changed before mobile, that changed when the internet came into being. But I would argue that until very recently, even, the internet was essentially being populated by organizations and brands, right? So even the information we were pulling down off the net was not necessarily user generated and not always credible or trustworthy. So in terms of now not only having access to user generated information, I think that's one huge shift.
Yeah.
But the other huge shift now is that I've got the information where it's most critical to me, and that's at the shelf, right? So
Right.
It's not a matter anymore of, kind of doing cursory research, doing what you think you're going to need to know once you get to the store, and then trying to make a decision from there. It's getting there, realizing that what you came for isn't maybe what you want, and then doing research right on the spot. And and that can range anything from price to reviews to you name it, right? Consumer reports, and it's all right there in the palm of your hand.
It's so true. I remember, and I mean, we're not of an age where we can say I remember, but I remember the time when I used to have to go into HMV. For those of you who don't know what HMV is, it's a record store. For those of you who don't know what a record is, it's the place, you go back and back. But I used to have to go into HMV to look at the upcoming list of when a record was going to be released. Like I'd have to go through a binder. I was looking for the next Springsteen album, and that's right. It was brought online, so at least I can now do a search and find it. But a perfect example: the camera I'm using right now. It's a Logitech, HD cam. I went into a Best Buy. I did my research on it. I went into a Best Buy. They didn't have the one that I had researched. I found this one. I sat down somewhere, jumped online, watched a video review, read a bunch of reviews about it, compared it to some other products, and made a buy decision based on somebody's comments and feedback. That's a pretty powerful mechanism right now. Mobile, all enabled by mobile, as you say,
Yeah.
at the point of sale decision making. Pretty awesome.
And you think about how that changes the flow for a retailer. I mean, you think about, because I can only speak, and as we all can, from personal experience,
Yep.
but think back to the days when, pretty high percentage of what you bought either didn't perform the way you thought it was going to, you found out you paid way too much for it, or it just wasn't what you wanted in the first place. And so you wind up, either being dissatisfied with that product, or you wind up taking it back to the retailer. So if you imagine now a world where going forward, most of those purchases become completely informed, that's a huge shift.
Yeah.
That's a huge shift in the business model and in the relationship that consumers are going to have with brands. But I mean, even simple things too. And it's funny you mentioned a Logitech camera, because I did exactly the same thing. Yeah, exactly. But if you think about simple things like, 10 years ago, if you went to a store, you didn't even know where the nearest competitor was.
Right.
You'd be standing there and you're looking at, say, this Canon camera and it's $649, and you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe I could get it cheaper, but I don't even know where the nearest other camera store is. So simple stuff like that. The sales associate tells you something and it doesn't quite sound right. But 10 years ago, you either had to trust them or leave the store. And
right.
So now it's a totally different game with mobile.
I wonder how many times people walk up and they ask the salesperson a question about a TV or something, and the response is, okay, I'll be right back. And then they go off and they corroborate that story to see basically is what this guy telling me truth. And we were talking before. I mean, I'd love to think that everybody's doing that. You said as in our imagination, as people who have been in this business for a long time, all I see are in my head a bunch of people just checking prices, right, and ensuring they're getting the best quality. But I don't think that matches with reality. Do you?
No, I don't. I don't. I mean, I think we imagine the potential of mobile right now, and especially those of us who are close to it in the industry. I think we see the potential that this technology has. We're more familiar than most, obviously, with what it's capable of, and a lot of the apps that are out there that can help people shop more intelligently. But the truth of the matter is, just go to your local mall. Go to a local plaza and look around. And I defy you to find people redeeming mobile coupons and scanning barcodes and comparing prices. It may be happening here and there, but I don't think it's ubiquitous. I don't think it's widespread yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, it follows. It's an intelligent assumption that as smartphone penetration increases and as people become more familiar and aware, why wouldn't you use this kind of technology? It just makes perfect sense.
It's at your fingertips now. I mean, do you see that? Certainly mobile is influencing the way that people are buying. However slight today. I think that we're up to in North America about 40% of all phones that are out there are smartphones, and that's kind of doubling year over year. It's pretty incredible when you think about the growth in there. But is mobile really influencing decision making now, or is it influencing pricing yet, or is that on the horizon, Doug?
My opinion is, and what I'm learning from researching it, is that it's on the horizon right now. And I think even more so on the horizon in Canada, potentially, Rob, than in the US. Because even if you go and you download some of the apps that kind of give you this power in the palm of your hand, a lot of it doesn't even address Canadian content. You can walk around, you can scan stuff, but you're not gonna find very much, right? Because the UPCs aren't matched up to Canadian products. So I think that there's a lot of deceptive information out there. If you are combing the headlines every day, you're undoubtedly going to see headlines like 80% of shoppers say that they're using their mobile phone to when they're shopping, right? And so you think, wow, I mean, it sounds like a whole army of people out there, scanning and downloading. But the truth is, then when you look behind the data, all too often what it is they've downloaded a ringtone, or you know what I mean? And and it is a purchase, but they're sort of classifying that as being a use during shopping, or it's something from iTunes or something like that. I think that the majority right now, I think where we are right now is that as smartphone adoption improves, I think what we're seeing is more mobile search, which can clearly be helpful too. Going back to the point about is there a store closer by that is an alternative to the one I'm standing in right now? So things like that for sure. Can I just do a quick Google search and find out if this product is dangerous or lousy or hazardous or whatever the case may be? So I think people are using it for that right now. Some of the people that are maybe out on the front edge of this stuff, they're the guys that are downloading Red Laser and Shop Savvy and, because it's cool and they want to try it. But yeah, I think we're really at the beginning of this thing, and we've got a long way to go, and it's going to be a really exciting time.
I mean, I would agree with you in it. It just seems like every year we talk about this being the year of the mobile revolution, or the beginning of it. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing mobile for 10 or 12 years, and every year has been the year of mobile since then. But I really believe that, I mean, now there's enough penetration and adoption of these devices that we're starting to see more and more people get engaged. But you're right. I'll be the only guy on a busy Saturday at Best Buy looking, scanning, researching. And that always saddens me because I keep saying, you know what, are we a year away from me seeing somebody else next to me doing the same thing, or are we 6 months? When you start to think about this, that connected shopper and the way that it's going to influence, mobile is going to influence their decision. We're not quite there, but when do you think this is going to happen?
Yeah, it's really difficult to say, and I'm not trying to vacillate on it, because I think it will change. I think that the answer to that question will also depend on where you are. Where in the world you are, and even where in the country you are. I think we're going to see different penetration rates. I think these things by default are going to happen earlier in urban centers where you have younger populations of people, because not that mobile is completely age dependent, but there's no question that mobile usage skews younger.
Sure.
So I think that will make a difference. But I mean, if I had to put a round number on it, I'd say you're going to start to see these behaviors becoming more pervasive at retail within the next 3 years. Right. That would sort of be my marker. And I think to some extent, and I wonder, I don't know the answer to this, but I wonder if to some extent mobile payment couldn't in some way be a tipping point for a whole bunch of other stuff. If once we get used to the idea that our banking and our credit card systems and everything reside on our mobile phone, and our mobile phone is an integral, or our mobile device is an integral part of our shopping trip, I wonder if that won't cause a lot of other behaviors to tip. I don't know.
I mean, we were talking before. This is in order for this to really take hold, this is a social and a behavioral change that happens here, right? And anytime you want to change a behavior, I mean, this takes time. This is not just done overnight. Canadians, in our defense, as Doug is in Toronto and I'm in Ottawa, and we're both in Ontario, and we're both Canadians, we really adopted technology like debit cards, Interac, way faster than every other nation. Mm-hmm. Where most Canadians don't carry cash anymore, and there's an expectation that wherever you go, you can use this silly piece of plastic and get your money, which is debit. But Americans took a long time to adopt this, and so I think that it's skewed in our favor. Don't you think that we're going to be one of the kind of the at the forefront of adoption of this, especially because mobile penetration in Canada is incredible.
It is. Yeah, we're incredibly connected. We're number one in terms of internet usage as well. Yeah. So we are incredibly connected as a nation. We respond well to technology. We're not technologically averse, certainly, and you're quite right. I mean, we are quick to adopt things like debit cards, which I think I think looking back, somebody said that took about 4 years, to go from. I think it was only to 4 years to reach 100 million users, if you can believe it, and then from there it just took off. Yeah. But I think the other thing that maybe, and you would know more about this, Rob, than I would. I think the other thing too, though, is the cost for us of data in this country, and I think if we really wanted to forge ahead in terms of becoming more ubiquitous in mobile usage. Especially as it pertains to mobile browsing. We've got to get a handle on data costs somehow in this country. It's just outlandish,
It is. I mean, we're one of the highest nations, or second highest nation, and we pay in data costs. It's because we're early adopters, and it's the carriers know that we're going to pay for it, and we do. And Yeah, that's the challenge. I guess you balance those out, and carriers have got to understand that there's a huge opportunity for them to become, to extend their services into the retail place as well and benefit from that beyond just charging for data. Data is a commodity that at some point is no longer going to be a good business to be in, right? Because it's not going to. It's a revenue generator, but the cost is going to come down as the data goes up.
It just stunts the growth of everything.
It certainly does. Carriers are like that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, in the early retail days of mobile retail days, where you had to buy games on deck, they controlled that. On the J2ME or the feature phones, not the smartphones, they controlled that. And they controlled it like a castle with a moat and big walls, and you had to talk to that one guy who you could never get in touch with in order to get your game or your product on deck. And what Apple did with the App Store and what Android's done with the marketplace and RIM's done with their App World is basically, and Ovi has done, or Nokia has done with the Ovi stores, basically destroyed, filled in that moat, knocked down every wall, and the carrier was looking, stood there naked saying, okay, now we got to figure out how to generate more revenue. So they went back to what they knew well, which is gouging the consumer. We don't need to talk about that here.
No, that's a whole other topic.
It is, but it is an enabler. It's a challenge to enablement here. But when we talk about mobile, is that we're starting to see these? Are we starting to see these behavioral changes? And what do you think is how is the consumer experience going to change when it comes to leveraging mobile beyond just checking for product? How is it going to change the way that they buy, the way that they interact with stores, brand development, all that kind of stuff we're just at the beginning?
That's an excellent question because, going back to sort of where are we in the evolution right now, I think a couple things are happening out there. First of all, I think right now we're in the gotta have an app sort of frame of mind, right? I know you've talked about that a lot, and there's this whole debate about, should you be using native apps or should you be using mobile web? And there's a lot of companies out there that just feel like we got to put a check in the box this year so that we can, tell the boss that we've at least launched a mobile program, right? Because we're getting heat about it. So I think there's a lot of that, and I think what it results in is that companies haven't thoroughly thought through the content. They've decided on some of the functionality, but they haven't really built great content. So what we're seeing is a lot of transfer of kind of analog content over to digital. We have a few PDFs we can put up, and let's take our flyer and we'll just sort of make it digital and interactive and all that stuff. So that's happening, but what isn't happening to a great extent is that retailers are not using mobile technology to solve consumer problems. That is not happening yet. And when I say that, I'm being general. I'm not suggesting it's not happening at all, but it's not happening in a widespread way. Yeah. So, what are the problems? Well, okay, consumers consistently say that checkouts are a problem, right? We do not like standing in line. And in a lot of cases, although they favor self-checkout, a lot of the self-checkout technology isn't that great either. So, it can be a real problem. So how many retailers are out there saying, okay, we're not going to build a vanity app. We're not going to build an app with a bunch of useless content on it that consumers really don't care about. Why don't we just allow them something that makes checkout easy? That would be a great thing to see. Here's another age-old problem, right? I don't understand the ingredients that are on a package of food. There is an app for that. There's plenty of apps out there that do that. Why isn't Loblaw saying we have launched now the Loblaw app that allows you to scan any product and find out if there's something in it that you don't like?
Sure.
Because we understand that you don't understand what lecithin or deoxymonoxyl hydro, you don't know what that stuff is, so we're going to give you the technology that will help you understand it. That's the kind of thing I think has to start happening, and consumers will turn around and say, okay, now that makes sense to me, because we don't need another flyer, we don't need another coupon, we don't need another text message saying save 10%, So I think that where we are right now is that the entry point for retail is to say, let's be promotional. right? Retailers tend to be, by definition, by DNA, they tend to be very promotional. So if you say, here's a media channel, they're going to default to promotion
Absolutely.
rather than creating great experience, because that takes more imagination and creativity.
It really does.
So, and on the consumer side, the consumer is going to basically shun anything that looks like yet another middle of the road, boring, mediocre marketing message. So we're at that impasse right now. So I think we're going to have to get through that first, and some great retailers out there will do a great job of it. They'll lead the way. But I think the other thing too, and this isn't directly related to your question, but I think it's important. If your brand sucks offline, it's going to suck in mobile. Right? It's not going to be great just because you say we have an app now. If you are really a bad brand in terms of creating consumer engagement and customer experience, your app will probably be just as bad.
Yep.
So, I think that this sort of idea of across-the-board experiences changing in retail probably won't. You'll have great experiences at places like, we've been having great experiences in the Apple Store for a long time. Yeah. Well, why haven't other retailers just copied it?
Well, a couple of them in China have, quite literally, right?
Yeah.
But that's a great question. Why not? I've worked with some traditional media companies and moving them into the mobile space, and they know. I mean, everybody looks around and says, "We know what we need to do," but Bill in procurement says we can't do it, or the CEO hasn't given us the budget, or. But where it is with Apple, it's like they built that store from the ground up. You don't see a cash register in there. It's on purpose. Everybody carries the devices that they're selling, and it processes credit cards on the spot on purpose, right? But do you think it's going to take an upstart retailer, aside from Apple, like a grocer, like an upstart grocer, to come in here and just say, listen, this is the new way, right? Everything's self-serve. Here's our app that allows you to see our inventory, make your list. Discounts are coupons are automatically applied. If you're on a diet, we know that lecithin has peanuts and you're allergic to peanuts, and so don't buy that. And it builds that profile, and then it'll output all of the cost of your the real-time cost of your shopping list and the caloric intake of the shopping list, and it'll tell you that you don't have enough veggies. Is it going to take an upstart to build that experience?
Well, I think to some extent, yeah, for sure. I think we're seeing that all the time in retail, that companies that were not retail brands are completely disrupting retail.
Right.
Because
there's no legacy.
Yeah. There's no legacy, there's no baggage, there's no Fred in procurement that says we can't do it, right? So, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And there's three things really, going back to sort of the fact that we don't just look at technology, we're looking at economics as well. Yeah. If you look back historically at great companies that have started in business and been successful, companies like FedEx, like GE, many of them started during recessions.
Right.
And they were considered disruptive at the time. They were the new guy that came in and said, maybe we can do this differently. So, we happen to be, I don't know if you heard about this, but we are in a recession. Did you hear about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah.
A little one. And, and nobody can tell if we're in or out.
It's just a speed bump.
Yeah, of course.
So this is prime time now for disruptive change. Yeah. You underpin that with the kind of technological advancement and the technological speed that we're seeing now, coupled with, as a third thing, if we needed one, coupled with the fact that commercial real estate prices, not so much in Canada but in the U.S., are at all-time lows. Yeah. It's just right. It's ripe for somebody to come in and say, I don't like the way that this product gets sold, and I'm going to do it differently.
I mean, I wouldn't have been able to say it better than that, Doug, just simply because I think that we're all craving for this kind of stuff, whether we know it or not. We're in the industry, so I look around at every instance and say, wow, could we ever have done this? Or they could have done that. And what's it going to take for them, it's us and them, for consumers, I think, will adopt, at a great pace. But it's the retailers that I'm concerned about. Is that what is it going to take for them to really embrace this? Is it the fact that I'd be scared. I look at Chapters, which is a Canadian behemoth that sells books. But when I see them getting into plush toys and candles and that kind of stuff, I think, okay, so the end is almost near. People walk in and it's a commodity as a book. I scan the book. I find out where I can buy it cheaper if it's secondhand on Amazon or from Amazon, and I walk out the store. Today that's happening. Maybe not in the way I think as many times as it is, but it's happening.
Yeah.
How do these guys move the needle here, or are they just? Is it a natural artifact or a natural fact that these guys will just disappear and the next generation of company will come in and do it better?
Yeah, I mean, it really takes, I guess, there's no simple answer, but I think it starts with incredible creativity and courage, really. I mean, it's the courage to sort of jump out of the lifeboat and swim for shore, you know what I mean? And as opposed to just sitting in the lifeboat as it sinks. And I look at, Chapters as a cool example because I'm doing some research right now for a talk with the Campus Stores Association of Canada. And of course, it goes without saying, a lot of the pressure on campus stores is exactly what you just cited. Kids come in, they look at their curriculum, they look at their textbook list, they confirm that the bookstore has it, and then they search it and see if they can buy it online for less money. So one way that there's a company, and I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but there's a company now that's has built an application that allows for the campus bookstore to let kids search competitive vendors on the campus bookstore website, right? So I can go on, find my business textbook, search across all competitors, and of course the campus store makes a deliberate pitch for having the student buy from them. They say, you can get it right away, we give you better service. If you need to return it because you change courses, no problem. But they understand that kids are still going to order from competitors. But what they've done is they've said, if that happens, you get a commission. So if the student decides to buy the book from Amazon or some other textbook vendor, you get a commission, Mr. or Mrs. Campus Bookstore. So it's an example of where I think, Chapters could do a couple of things. They could create a better environment to read ebooks in, whatever that looks like, but they could define that and become the term of reference in the marketplace.
Right.
Create the model. What do we need to do that? Well, we need tons of plugs in the store, and we need comfortable chairs, and we need great lighting, but not just any lighting. It's got to be perfect for Kindle and Kobo, and let's define that experience. But what have they done? They've taken the chairs out of Chapters. Have you noticed that?
I know there's nowhere to sit, so people are sitting on the floor, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So let's just make things worse, for the consumer. And then they could also be looking at models like, how could we hammer an agreement? Right now, Amazon's the enemy, but how could we hammer out an agreement with Amazon where the people in our stores are able to search Amazon and we at least get something out of that? We host.
We have the ability to adjust a price or make it so that, listen, give us a chance to win your business at that moment. But they're not even doing that, which is the big challenge.
So, and the other thing too, Rob, is that look at the web. Like, you just look at websites, and it's as unbelievable as it may seem. You were probably doing this, as was I. Even 3-4 years ago, having conversations with retailers about why they need a website. About 40% of the businesses in Canada don't have one.
Yeah.
40% of the independent businesses in this country do not have a website. So, and mind you, I grant you that this technology is moving exponentially faster than web technology did initially.
Absolutely.
But there's still going to be a pretty long adoption curve on this stuff. We're going to have people doing phenomenal things in mobile before the majority of companies do anything.
But as you said, that the gap there is much shorter, right? It's not 10 years
It shouldn't be, because
no.
it's moving that much more quickly. Yeah.
I can't wait to see this. You know, the one thing that strikes me is that Chapters is a unique thing because they have a massive opportunity to be able to embrace this technology and learn from it and live it and love it. And I look at what somebody like, I mean, take a look at what the Kindle's doing when it comes to Author QA. So it's a new service that allows me, if I buy an ebook, I can share notes, for example, that I've taken, and people can share them with me, and I can, do a back and forth or pose a question to a to the author, right? And I think this is like, you can't compete with this in a retail environment because this is above retail. It's a new layer on top of retail that influences the buying decision, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the kind of thing, like, you can either pretend like it's not happening and try and convince people. Like, there's people in the publishing industry that are still trying to sell people on the idea that, oh, but nothing compares to the feel and the smell of a book, Just like I'm assuming that there were people that said, the car is interesting, but there's nothing like the smell of a horse. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's like,
And so you can either reject that these things are happening and try and convince people that the old technology is better, or you can say, how can we take all this stuff that is happening? How can we take things like what you just mentioned with Kindle? That's, it's really, really amazing technology. There's textbook technology that's phenomenal now. Kids can pull out diagrams and put them into 3D models and play with them. And how can we take all these experiences and really create now a retail environment that celebrates all that stuff? That really is a great place to go with your e-reader, your iPad, or your Kindle, and spend an hour and really enjoy yourself. And by the way, we have all these other ancillary services and products that you can buy along the way. How do you redefine a new model as opposed to just watching your old models slide away?
Well, they're in jeopardy, right, if they don't. And when you look around and you see this, I mean, there's got to be big swaths of retail that mobile is jeopardizing today, or will be jeopardizing, if they just basically put their head in the sand and say, it's not happening, it's not happening. Do you see this? Do you look out and say, wow, they're in jeopardy? Like, are there industries that you're looking at that said, I mean, they're at a breaking point, or they're at a point where the curve is tipping and they're losing touch?
Yeah, well, I think certain things lend themselves very well to being purchased, first of all, on the internet, second of all, on mobile, right? So electronics, I think, is a really, really dicey category to be in, with a tremendous amount of stores and inventory. So, it's no secret. Best Buy has been called Amazon's showroom. So as a consequence, here's Best Buy now sitting there looking at these 80,000 square foot stores and saying, maybe this ain't such a good idea. And so I think on the one hand, we're going to see rapid mobile adoption by retailers like this, that say, we have to get a handle on this and try to at least control that experience in our stores. Bring consumers over by offering them benefits like check-in and check-in ability, self-scanning ability, in return for information, and in return for having the consumer stay within the network. You know what I mean? So I think we're going to start to see that sort of trade-off in places like Best Buy. And the second thing I think we're going to see is, and we're already seeing it, is we're going to see retailers now all of a sudden downsizing their stores. So we're seeing Best Buy now go from 80,000 square feet down to, say, 50,000 square feet, and trying to contain those costs as well, because they just simply are not, they're not going to need as much space.
Well, what's incredible about Best Buy is that these guys have a massive opportunity to shift their business really from physical goods in a big store to, they've got the inventory, they've got the channels, they've got everything that they need to be able to switch this into a mobile or web play. But their mobile experience is terrible. I mean, they've just put their website up on a mobile, if you pull it up, go to Best Buy or Future Shop if you're in Canada, and their website is terrible. It's not mobile enabled. This is a company, I would say, that is in massive jeopardy, and they don't even see it. they're staffing up with blue shirts and they say, well, match your price, but they don't get that it's not about matching the price.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I mean, it comes to a point, I think, where you have to say, what if we didn't sell products? What if the products in our store were free, and all we really sold was the experience of being in the store, ultimately, or the experience of going on our website, right? That it's so superior from the standpoint of usability, from experience, from added value content, from what if we could get our experience to that level? Because otherwise, if you don't, then why wouldn't you just order from Amazon?
No, exactly.
What idiot wouldn't? If you could save 20%, 30% in doing so, you'd be crazy not to, right?
Well, I remember fundamentally, if you think about the shift, people were opposed to box stores for a long time, and then they realized that why would I be opposed to getting 20% off or getting a discount on from a local retailer? So people went from local retailer to box store because they were getting a discount, and now this box store issue is disappearing because look, I can get now a discount from online, and then now you transition right into the mobile first thing, which is I don't even have to go anywhere. I can scan a product from anywhere or take a picture of it and buy it in a second and get an even bigger discount without having the hassle of retail, which is pretty powerful.
Yeah, exactly. The big box was a cool thing when it came along because many of us had never seen that much product under one roof.
Yeah.
I will never
strawberries year round, man. What is that?
Yeah. I'll never forget the experience of walking into my first Home Depot, and just being like a kid in a candy store, looking around and thinking, how'd they do this? And then all of a sudden, the internet became the big box. It became the biggest box. So
and then you ask, why did they do that? Right? That it goes from how did they do that to why did they do that?
And why are they still doing it? Exactly. So yeah, I mean, there's just a huge shift in terms of this idea of consumer control. It really is. It's like 2,000 years of history is now being reversed, and we're seeing it. We're alive to see it, which is pretty cool.
So if I was to say, listen, Doug, how can companies, how can retailers, you're out on the road, you're talking to a lot of retailers, you're giving them advice to say, listen, it's time to start adopting this. How can they start to get into this? Like, how can they start leveraging or moving into it to their benefit and not cost an arm and a leg?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Not cost an arm and a leg, and be right. Yeah. Right. Be correct with what you're doing. I think the best thing they can do, I'm not a big advocate of asking consumers what they want.
Right.
I don't believe in focus groups that go in and say, tell us what to build, because consumers don't know what they want.
Right.
But they know what they hate. Right?
Yes, they do.
We all know what we hate, and we're right when we say we hate it. We hate confusing navigation in stores. We hate long lineups at the cash register. We hate belligerent staff members. We hate products that don't work, and we hate paying more than is fair. Yeah. So if we know these things, and if we can know these things as an organization, we should go out and find out what our customers feel, what they want, in terms of experience, or what they hate. Then I think you've got to get with the right company that can help you solve those issues in a way that is really user friendly, very slick. It's not complex. We don't need more complexity, but just give me very simple tools that help me solve the problems I just told you that I hate. Yeah. And
that's a place to start. It has to be.
It has to be a place to start. And I know that sounds like, to any marketer listening to this, they're going to say, well, yeah, right, of course, that's academic. But you wouldn't be, but I'm sure some people would be shocked at the number of companies that I talk to where I say, that's a really, really cool app. Did you talk to your customers before they built it, before you built it? And the number of companies that say, not really or no is shocking. They basically had this suite of functionality in mind. They populated it with a bunch of old legacy content, and we have a mobile app.
They called it mobile.
And they called it mobile. Exactly.
And it's still a pig with lipstick, right?
Yeah.
And maybe we'll finish up here, Doug, because we've used two examples here. We've used chapters in Canada and Best Buy as well. If you were talking to these guys, with that advice, is there something that you could look at in chapters, the way that they do things, that would say, listen, just do this, chapters? I'm asking you they're not going to implement it, because I don't think anybody from Chapters or Best Buy watches this. But if you looked at them and said, I have one for Best Buy, but what's the biggest challenge? You could say, look, Chapters or Best Buy, man, just do this, because this is the frustration that I feel when I'm in your stores.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think it requires radical thinking, and just as an aside, we talked about Apple, and why haven't retailers replicated the Apple experience? And there's been a lot of writing about that. One theory is that it's so radical, that there was so much radical thinking incorporated into the Apple experience that it is virtually impossible for someone to just come along and say, well, we'll build a Genius Bar or we'll have mobile POS, because it's more than that, right? But it was based on very radical thinking at the time. And I think in the Chapters example, what I would say to Chapters is, here's the challenge. I want you to take 2 stores in different parts of the country. I want you to remove every book from the store. Every single book has to go from the store. You have to now design a consumer experience that makes money without selling a single book. And you can't just bring in more gift cards or greeting cards and stuff like that. You have to design an experience around where the consumer really is in terms of reading. And maybe that forces you then to define the e-reader experience at retail.
I love it.
I think you have to be that radical. And now I want to hear your Best Buy idea.
Well, it's not as radical. It's just so simple, though. Now I'm embarrassed about, I've talked to a futurist about this, and my idea was so simple, is that I, as a consumer, have bought many a product with Best Buy, only to be completely disappointed when a day later. I've done this. I had to go in and buy a power cord for my MacBook, and I went to Future Shop, and there's Future Shop and Best Buy next to each other. And I went to the Future Shop, bought it there, and then said, I'm going to walk over to Best Buy and I'm going to check it out, because that's the kind of guy I am. I want to make sure that I'm getting the best price. I tried to look on inventory. It didn't work so well. So I walked over. It was faster, which is a terrible sign. Right? It's faster to walk over to the store than to check on my mobile. I walked over there. Sure enough, it was $30 off price difference at Best Buy. So I'm like, oh my God. So I took a picture of the price next to the product, walked back over to Future Shop, stood in line to wait for their customer service to get a $30 discount to showcase them. And they're the same company. They run from the same inventory, which is astounding to me.
Yeah.
So, that's a bad experience. And I was talking to the customer service, and everything that's wrong with customer service was there. Well, sorry, here's your money back. But what I'd love is that flag that says, listen, when I'm buying this product, they know it's me, it's an associated account, it's cheaper over here, we'll automatically debit. That pain has to be solved. And the same thing that with a 30-day price guarantee, right? That if I buy the product, it shouldn't be the onus on the consumer to figure out if there's a better price out there in those 30 days, or they reduce their price. It should be that, wouldn't it be great from a customer service standpoint if I got a check from Best Buy because, oh, look, in 30 days the product was actually reduced by $100. Here's the difference, right? Like that simple experience. You don't need a store to do it, right? Yeah.
Well, and I think, again, I mean, the economics of the Best Buy situation are I'm not privy to their economics, right? So I don't know what their margin is on an MP3 player or a DSLR camera. I'm not sure, but I have heard in a lot of cases you're dealing with pretty skinny margins on a lot of this stuff. You're not making a tremendous amount of money on the hardware to begin with. So my question would be, why can't I take a photography course at Best Buy?
Yeah.
Why can't I learn how to mix music on my computer at a Best Buy? You know, it seems to me that there's this whole universe of services that could be part and parcel of when you buy your DSLR camera, we give you an introductory course in photography. Why haven't they explored any of that? It just seems to me that they're saying, well, you know, Amazon's going to eat our lunch, so we'll downsize our stores and we'll launch Shopkick.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll reward people for running around the store scanning QR codes, you know. That's not a business decision that I would understand. You know, I would say let's make this about more than the product.
And eventually the product will become secondary.
Yeah, the product will be the experience.
Doug, that's why you're the futurist. And I'm just a guy that complains about bad customer service. I love it.
No. Give
I love
yourself lots of credit.
So, you know, I feel that I got to have you back on here because we've only just touched the surface on this. You know, I think I've gotten through, you know, question number 1 and 2 here, and and we're way into this. But in the interim, and I'm going to get you back on. It won't be long as well. I mean, you write about this consistently. Are you posting this at retailprofit.com?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a pretty active blog at retailprofit.com, and again, I mean, you know, it's sort of everything across mobile technology, social networking, and social marketing, and how that's playing into things, all the way across the big stuff in economics and demographics as well. So it's a lot of information, but the whole idea is, again, not to report the news, because there's a lot of that going on. But as you do, Rob, it's to provide context and perspective on all the news.
Well, it's so important. I mean, an upheaval would be a light way to describe what's going on. And you know, whatever it is, whether it's on the consumer side, whether it's on the retailer side, this is coming, and it's not slowing down.
No,
you know, it's going to accelerate to the point where retail, you know, we might be witnessing the end of the cash register in our generation as a result of what's going on here. And maybe that's an extreme thought, but here's one. Take out your cash registers, right?
No, I don't think so. You know, I think we're definitely going to see things like that. I think we're you know, it's all about disintermediation, right? Maybe as a final thought. We've seen so much disintermediation over the last 20 years. It's mind-boggling. You know, people don't need a lawyer for things very much anymore. People don't need doctors necessarily to diagnose everything these days. Professions that we thought were just indispensable, you know, and functions that we thought were indispensable, we don't need them anymore. And to imagine a world where retailers in general become disintermediated and the consumer is dealing directly with the manufacturer, that's not that big a jump in thinking. It really becomes about why we shop in the first place. And that's what I think, you know, I talk to audiences sometimes about this notion that everyone wants to say, so brick and mortar retail is going to go away, it'll be completely eradicated. And the answer is no, because we don't just shop to go get stuff. Right. In a lot of cases, we go out, maybe not men so much because you know, we are more stuff driven, but certainly women go out to shop for social reasons. You know, it's getting out with people in public, and so I think retailers really have to get back to that and say, how do we create a great social shopping experience here that makes people feel good? You know, and if we do that, and we can sell product at the same time, then life is good. So, no, it's not a crazy question. Cash registers gone? Absolutely. Stores gone? Sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think that we're going to see this. This is, you know, as tumultuous as the economy becomes, based on, you know, on from the global economy perspective, mobile is going to be driving this, and mobile is going to have such a serious impact on the way that we buy, what we buy, how we buy, where we decide to sell, what we sell, how often we sell. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's
yeah,
cool.
I can't wait for this to happen, so that it's enabled and we can start thinking about what's next.
That's right.
Doug, I can't thank you enough. Really insightful. You've given 2 great ideas away to Best Buy and Chapters. You heard it here. It's time stamped. If they're doing that, it's Doug's idea. And go to retailprofit.com to go and take a look. That's profit spelled like profit, not profit like profit taking.
That's right. With a PH, like a rapper.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fat with a PH.
And I mean, go and read Doug's blog. You'll see him everywhere. App Central, quoted every Globe and Mail. And if you ever get a chance to see Doug speak, go up and say hi and tell him that you heard or saw him here on untethered.tv. And that would be the best thing that could possibly happen.
That's right.
So thank you so much, Doug. I really appreciate it.
I want to say too, I've told you this before, but I'll say it publicly again. Time stamped. You do a phenomenal job with this show, and it really is. It's an entertaining show to watch. It's incredibly informative, and I just really admire the way you put it together.
Now you're going to make me blush.
I thought you were going to say cry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll do that off camera, right? I'm not ready to do that on camera. Doug, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. It really does. And the fact that people are coming onto the show, I don't have to beg or pay people anymore. I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah. It's like making it now. You're on Untether, you made it.
Exactly. Well, we'll see. Doug, thank you so much. I've been speaking with Doug Stevens, who is a retail industry futurist and obviously an all-around knowledgeable guy around what's going on in this mobile space, around retail and beyond. So go check out Retail Profit. Thank you guys for watching and listening. I really appreciate the fact that you come here day after day. I know I say it, but I really mean it. If you have any comments on this or any other show that I've done, untether@gmail.com. And I look forward to being a part of the next untether.tv, and hopefully you will be as well. Thanks for watching. See you, Doug.
See ya.